Welcome back to Rocket Talk. My name is Connor, and I am the only one in our actual mainline Rocket Talk title, because this is actually going to be shaking things up quite a bit. Instead of Rocket Talk 33, it's technically the start of a new podcast that I am doing called Moving in Stereo. Joining me for this new series, we have my brother Tyler and my best friend Court. We're going to be talking about music. This is not going to be this is not going to be very structured the way Rocket Talk is, and it's not going to be about nerd news or anything. This podcast is going to be more conceptual in nature, just about, music in general. We're going to have reviews. We're going to be, talking about music old and new alike. But as far as this goes, it's going to be, what is the purpose of music? What has music done for us in our daily lives? What is our experience with music? So this is going to be technically Rocket Talk episode 33, but it's going to be more of a backdoor pilot for our podcast Moving in Stereo episode 1. Now, let's get this out of the way. We are not experts. We will do as much research as we can, but this whole thing is just us on a journey to learn more about music. We all have our own experiences with music, and we're going to share that with you. But we'll also be sharing new things we learn along the way with us, and that's what we invite you to be present for, is learning with us. So I just want to start off real quick with kind of a segment from Rocket Talk, and that's going to be Bev Check. So currently I am drinking apple cider that we went to the apple orchard yesterday and got some fresh apple cider.
You're so fancy.
Very tasty. Oh yeah. Court, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Imperial Pumpkin Smash because it's that spoopy season.
Oh yeah.
With the skeletons and all that jazz. So it's Crown Valley Brewing, and it's from Saint Genevieve, I guess how you say it, Saint Genevieve, Missouri, and it's Saint with an E at the end because they wanted to class the Missouri town up.
Class it up, I guess, as much as you can.
But yeah,
so it's not pronounced Saint Genevieve.
I guess not. But it's a stout brewed with pumpkin and spices, and it has like a nice scary jack-o'-lantern on the cover.
So the pumpkin spicy
bottle.
Beers. This
you
is
know all the white girls
pumpkin.
just Googled this drink right now. You know that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm all about that. I'm in tune with my white girl.
Getting your white girl wasted, I guess.
Yeah. Yes.
Get that white girl on. It's the season, man. 'Tis the season.
Yep.
Tyler, what are you drinking?
You mean other than the shock of you calling Court your best friend? Not much. Just wine.
What? He was literally in my wedding, and I mean, Tyler, you're my brother. You were my best man, if that helps.
No, that's all right. 24 years of sharing a life together. That means nothing anymore.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Tyler and I are twins. So yeah, that's. But we did grow up in different, different, I guess, areas of music, I suppose. So like we
different tastes for sure.
Different tastes.
I mean, you and I grew up with the same exact taste. I think it was probably high school when we finally started to drift to our own individuality. Yeah, and it was definitely college when we finally stuck down our individual tastes in things, not just music,
Precisely. Yeah. So as you guys know, I come from Rocket Talk. Court has been featured on several times. He's got his own podcast, and he and I did Nerdmageddon together in college, which has been brought up on this podcast many, many times before. We did radio. We both have our own audio background. Tyler, on the other hand, he went to a different college. He has not been in audio. He's always wanted to. He's been telling me quite a bit that he's really, really wanted to do something involving radio or podcasting or something like that to be creative, use his creative. And he's going to use this as a creative outlet. So Tyler has no background in podcasting. So it's going to be him learning about this just as much as we're learning about music. So let's just kind of dive into who we are musically. So I did want to make everyone, we're going to be as transparent as possible with our style of music. That way you guys can kind of learn where we come from. And Court posed this question, and I thought it was fantastic. Who would we put on our Mount Rushmore of music? Court, that's a great question, and I'm going to start off with you.
Okay.
No, wait, what do you mean by Mount Rushmore of music there, Connor, for everybody out there that doesn't know about Mount Rushmore?
Good point. So the Mount Rushmore of music is going to be... What is Mount
There's probably
Rushmore?
A lot of college students out there that are like, what is Mount Rushmore?
Yeah, I mean,
it's like a Jimmy Kimmel. You have to go ask him on the street.
Yeah, like live witness news.
Yeah, so you're gonna go.
Mount Rushmore with all those flags and stuff.
Yeah, so that if you've never been to the Dakotas, then I guess it's possible. But for Mount Rushmore of music, who's been the most influential, like the pioneers of their respective genres, but also just of music in general? Who pushed music forward the most according to ourselves? So Court, you are probably the biggest music nerd I've ever met in my entire life, with the exception of my parents, who are huge music nerds. So I'm going to start off with you.
Okay. This one I went really back and forth with because you can have tons of conceivable options and great options, and so I just thought of influential people in their field, and maybe they weren't the forefathers of this particular instrument or genre or musicality, but they really pushed it forward in a whole new way. So starting off would be, I originally was going to go with my boy Jimi Hendrix for the guitar innovations that he put forward, but I thought, who was somebody that might have inspired Jimi Hendrix and the likes that would come after, say, a Jack White or a Stevie Ray Vaughan? Who would be a forefather of the guitar? And I had to go with Chuck Berry for his innovations, his duck walk, his musicality, and he just got there early in the time, just like you would pick out Little Richard for his showmanship. You would pick out Chuck Berry for just the innovations he did with the Johnny B. Good, or
not just musically, but performance in general, just being an overall performer.
He was a consummate showman, and then he just did some crazy stuff with the guitar, and I think just Hendrix saw that, and other people, maybe Clapton, saw that, and they just pushed it forward. Like Hendrix bent notes that weren't supposed to be bent, and he made them sound really pristine. But I think this Chuck Berry was all encompassing showmanship of the guitar. And there's people before him, like Les Paul, that did it, before him. But
he also did it in the times of segregation. As a black man, he it's not just that he was great musically and as a performer, but also the fact that he was doing this as someone who was who comes from a background of all he and his family ever knew was being separated and being different, and being and fighting against racism. And I'm sure there was plenty of moments in music where where his race was a barrier, and he helped tear those down.
And you'll actually see that a lot on my Mount Rushmore, is that there's the cultural divide, there is oppression, but there's rising above, and really rising above your circumstances, your social, political circumstances, your environment. So the next one would be another prominent African American, and this would be one that would inspire some of my favorite female singers, your Mariah Careys, your Ariana Grandes, and this would be the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin.
Yes, for her choice.
I'm so glad you said her.
Yes, just for her astute, magnetic vocals. She also had stage presence, and she also, her career carried along through the decades. So she, in the 80s, she revitalized herself, working with the likes of George Michaels, and even in the 90s, she was very well respected. And like I said, she pushed forward some of these artists that I really respect, like Whitney Houston was definitely probably a disciple of Aretha Franklin. And of course, she probably went through a lot of the segregation and oppression and just the sexism of the Motown era. But she's immortalized, and may her soul rest in peace. And she's going to be brought to the screen by Jennifer Hudson, I believe, in a biopic or somebody.
That's very cool.
I did not know. That's so cool.
That's the conversation I want to have for a future. Best biopics, or talk about movies that are You know,
oh, we could talk about Aretha for a whole segment.
Oh yeah, and
I could too.
A whole episode. We could have an Aretha series, and you know, another thing with musical biopics is we can go way deep with those, because it's not only like who are, you know, what are some of the better biopics and as far as production, but also like who are the more truthful ones, and what are the differences between what you saw in the movie and what actually happened.
Dude, we're on the same wavelength. We're on the same, because I was about to say fact check. We could have an episode about fact checking, say like a Bohemian Rhapsody or something.
Oh, certainly, and of course that had its own criticisms, and I read deep into those. The conversation for a different time, but Aretha, man, Aretha. Oh my gosh, and my wife is a huge Aretha fan.
That's great.
It's so funny because will go, she'll think faster than her mouth can keep up with, and so she'll sometimes accidentally say Urethra Franklin.
Oh, that's a band I've always wanted to have. It's called Urethra Franklin. But that's for
she's well deserving on that list, and of course, just absolutely gorgeous golden voice.
Yes, you'll probably, Connor,
humble beginnings, like Court mentioned.
Definitely, Connor, you'll agree with this. Maybe even have them on your list. I don't know, but for like just a cultural zeitgeist is the word, I think. A career spanning decades and decades, and influential to bands that I listen to. A guy that probably influenced countless amount of bands that I currently listen to, like Bright Eyes, and a guy named Dermot Kennedy, and all the singer-songwriters, these Ray LaMontaignes. So it's Bob Dylan.
Yep, I have him on my list.
For songwriting, for having his finger on the pulse of what was going on, for being controversial, and being a beatnik soul singer, like a coffee shop soul singer, to like a song, to when he had his electric phase, to just his songwriting is really amazing. There was just a recent polyphonic thing on his lyrics, like he's going to do a series deciphering Dylan's lyrics, and they're satirical, or whatever the word is. Satirical. I couldn't. And they're meaningful, and they're wise, and they're smart ass, and they're very complex. But for singer song, I mean, he's got and maybe another conversation we can have for a future is unique voices in rock and roll, which he does have a unique voice, but
unique is a very, very light way of putting it.
And like you said, now he sounds like a guy that's gargling the shards of glass, is what you said. Described him as currently. But regardless, he has amazing mythos to him. Sometimes we don't know what's true, what's false, but he has a fantastic career, and just for like sheer songwriting. Because I was going back and forth between songwriting, because I wanted that on my list, lyrical content. I was going back between him and, of course, like, could I have a split face? Could I have a Paul McCartney Lennon face? But I went with Bob Dylan, and so and then for my last person,
and also before you go into that, I also did want to mention Bob Dylan's role in civil rights, performing performing right before Dr. King in his "I Have a Dream" speech. His lyrics, like "The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll" or "Hurricane," and though the stories have been, they're not. I'm not going to say they're not true. Maybe they were. Not sensationalized, but slightly exaggerated for the sake of the song, or maybe certain things left out. But it was like his voice, using his fame, like using his iconic status to bring light to injustice, is another reason to put him on the Mount Rushmore of music.
Definitely.
Sorry to interrupt. You can go ahead with
it's okay.
Final person.
Yeah, it's kind of like it has a wavelength on my Mount Rushmore. It's like from the oppressed, underprivileged, to the person fighting for the underprivileged and the oppressed, to a person who was this next person was very haunted in his life, controversial, but was like rose above his circumstances and has such a speaking of like a mythos and a iconoclast to him, and a guy that just blazed ground for, say, like a Bruno Mars or any pop star like a Justin Timberlake. This is Michael Jackson. Say what you will about the allegations or his weird history of like cryogenically wanting to freeze himself or hanging out with a monkey. Chimpanzee. I don't want to degrade him by saying he's a monkey. Sorry, Bubbles. But this man was took the forefathers, took Sam Cooke or like a James Brown, and said like, I want to do that for the rest. You know, he was beaten by his father. He was paraded out there early as a kid. Didn't get to have a childhood, whatever. But he became like a music video maverick. It's the Halloween season, so we know Thriller is such an amazing masterpiece. We just know his art. He's a consummate showman, so we went from like Chuck Berry's awesome showmanship to Michael Jackson's legendary showmanship on the Motown's anniversary. I don't know what certain anniversary was for that, but it's when he first did the moonwalk, and just we could have a whole conversation about Mike Jackson, what he's contributed to music and who he's inspired. But yeah, I would definitely put him on my Mount Rushmore, and I'm sure Michael Jackson will be mentioned further on when we get into other conversations.
Lord, yeah. Oh yeah.
Working with Quincy Jones was amazing with the production of things like Off the Wall and Thriller, and yeah, he worked with some legendary guitarists as well, like Eddie Van Halen, and I think Slash played on Dirty Diana, if I remember right, and bought the
he brought Slash out to he toured with Slash too.
Bought the rights to the Beatles for a while, and maybe sold them to a Nike commercial, which wasn't the best thing for the Beatles, but hey, whatever. But yeah, he just amazing career. And so, yeah, that's my Mount Rushmore. Is like, I tried to get as diverse as I could, but I mean,
that was a great list, and every single person on there deserves to be up there. And of course, we're going to be touching on artists that some people would not agree with having on the list. Other people are going to be like, hey, what about so and so? What about so and so? And like, this is just ours. This is our backgrounds. This is where we come from. These are our favorites. These are our opinions of the most influential figures. We have 3 different Mount Rushmores that we're going to be going on here. So what more do you want from us? And every single one of those are great artists, and they all deserve their own shows. And of course, we are going to be touching on plenty more artists in the future. This is just an introductory podcast to get you guys well acquainted with our taste. And with that, we're going to move on to Tyler. And I think Tyler and I also have someone that are on both of our lists, but I can make adjustments as we go on. Tyler, who's on your Mount Rushmore?
We possibly do. I've been trying to isolate my own interests, not really based on. So, well, let me just say that these are basically who I'm focused on right now. My music tastes are always evolving. So this is just kind of who I've been studying and admiring for right now. So my Mount Rushmore is going to be different probably next month. But for now, I did singers, guitarists, bassists, and drummers. Not necessarily pioneer, but who I just respect as a representative of that trade, if you will.
Cool.
Makes sense.
I'm very interested to hear this.
Yeah. So I just have to say, Court, damn it, you stole my singer, Aretha. That's my girl. Aretha is my girl for all the reasons that you touched on and more. Her humble beginnings in gospel, which took her to absolute stardom. I mean, she was singing gospel in the 60s, and then by 1987, she's already in the Hall of Fame. Like, that's just pure showmanship and ability. That's hard work. That is the true American success story. You start off in humble beginnings during the era of segregation, and then by the end of her career, she was breaking ground to both black and white audiences. Oh, and of course her voice. Like, if we haven't even talked about how beautiful her voice is, like how powerful it is, there you go. That's the meat and potatoes of it all. Like,
exactly.
I think she's got like 3 or 4 different octaves that she's dominated.
It's certain episodes I want to do in the future is like breaking down people in like their ability, kind of the way Polyphonic did with Freddie Mercury. I want to do with Aretha Franklin, and we can talk about individual songs and stuff like that, and highlight certain aspects of her and her voice.
Absolutely, that's a conversation I'm waiting to have. So there's my singer, Aretha. She's my girl.
Okay.
To move on to guitarists, I had a couple of that I wanted to do. I was going to do Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin for his musicality, and then I changed it at the last moment, like right before it was my turn. I decided to do Pete Townsend from The Who.
Oh yeah,
Nice.
Great, solid choice right there.
Absolutely, and not just for his musical ability. Oh, I'll let me get into that. So of course we have his musical ability. Like, he can command the guitar, and he's really, really good at playing the guitar. But I chose his showmanship when he's up on stage for that reason. Because like when you're looking at like rock and roll guitarists, chapter 1 is Pete Townsend. He was really the first like true rock and roll lifestyle guitarist. Like, his stage presence alone, like he was dancing on stage at these shows, which gave him real control of the stage. Like, as great as Keith Moon was, people were watching Pete Townsend dance and jump while at the same time playing guitar and staying on tempo.
Seriously, Pete Townsend is like, he's like the textbook definition of a rock and roller with his lifestyle.
Oh, absolutely. He physically abused the stage and his guitar. He physically abused the stage with his guitar.
Exactly.
So like he broke ground when it came to being a rock guitarist. Like, he set that crowning moment by smashing that guitar in a pub in England. And actually, I think I heard that it was originally an accident. So legend has it that he just, in a fit of rock and roll madness, just smashed his guitar because he felt it in the moment. I think what I read online somewhere was that he was actually just in a pub that had a really low ceiling, and when he jumped up, he smashed the top of his guitar and just went with it from there.
That's actually what I heard too. That's I think that actually is what happened, but the crowd ate it up and they were cheering, so he just smashed the whole thing.
Yeah, and he just went with it. Like, talk about an iconic moment in rock and roll history. And so his stage presence and his showmanship as a musician and the ground that he set for what it meant to be a rock guitarist, that's why I chose Pete Townsend on my rock and roll Mount Rushmore.
I think it's a great choice, and,
yeah.
Anyone from The Who, as far as performance goes, anyone from The Who would be a really good choice, because you had Keith Moon literally blacking out on the drums from his like moving so much and being so crazy. And
I always get him confused for John Bonham because they had such a similar life,
Yes, yeah, and I think Keith Moon a little bit more extreme in his nature with his showmanship. You had Roger Daltrey, who's
Roger Daltrey.
Yeah, he was like swinging the microphone around. That's kind of his trademark, is doing like whatever, is like using it like as a lasso and a whip and stuff. And then
Entwistle or
John Entwistle.
Yeah.
I mean, not on stage, but he had hookers and blow in his green room and stuff like that.
That old shtick.
And then that whole band is a good
a time bomb.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have functioned as well as they did for as many years. They have
shows you how badass they are.
They have some damage to them right now. I mean, like I think
Pete Townsend has a
Townsend. Yeah, he can't hear, and I mean Keith Moon's not with us, so, and Entwistle's not with us, and Daltrey's probably has some psychological.
He's got some vocal.
Who's the singer for AC/DC again? What's his name?
Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson. Yeah, didn't he retire because he just wanted to keep his hearing?
Yes, he left for a couple years, and then Axl Rose took over AC/DC.
Yeah. I think he's back though.
They're
Is
back.
that what I heard? Right?
There's
back.
new news that they're recording something.
Gotcha. I'd be surprised to see if he's still doing shows, because I totally respect that choice. You know, if you're losing like your bodily functions due to your rock and roll lifestyle, maybe it's time to take a sabbatical.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he did, and I think they haven't been in the studio for how long has it been? I don't even know. But yeah, they're probably coming back because they probably had to get a doctor's note saying that they were eligible to play.
Yeah.
So yep, Pete Townsend, solid choice. Who else is on that list, Tyler?
Now moving on to the bass guitarists. This is now my territory. So I think it would have been really easy to choose any of the great hair band bassists like Billy Sheehan. Or even Victor Wooten for his own individual style, but I actually chose Justin Chancellor of Tool.
Nice.
All right.
Solid pick.
Yeah. And for that, for the reason that I chose him was not necessarily that I think he's the greatest bassist of all time. I just really respect him right now, especially for his ability to control the timing for the group. So you guys know Tool, they're known for their non-standard time signatures. They're kind of off-tempo beat because they're a really strange band. Like, listen to any one of their songs. Like this is not a normal group. This is not normal music. I just wanted to go jogging and listen to something upbeat. But yeah, he's kind of the backbone of their sound, their unique time signature, and I gotta hand that. I give that to Justin Chancellor. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I put him on my Mount Rushmore of music right now, just because I really respect him as a musician.
It's a solid pick. He's going deep back in their catalog. He's on one of my favorite albums, which is Anima from 1996, that has some cool songs. I was first introduced to this band through 120 Minutes. It's an MTV late night alternative show. Their music video scared the heck out of me, but then I bought their cassette and
you're really dating yourself, Corey.
Yes,
you're aging yourself right now.
I am, and I bought
your age is showing.
I bought Lateralis, and I bought like a box set where they had music videos and weird stuff. I think they covered Communication Breakdown or something. It was a Led Zeppelin song. And so, yeah, they're just a weird band that has weird timing structures and...
Yeah. I think he's been with them for all... absolutely.
They have the concept album worked out.
They really do. If anybody's got concept albums, I would give it to Tool. I think Justin Chancellor's been with them, I think, for all 5 of their studio albums at least, because their other one, Paul D'Amour, left in 95, and they dropped Enema in 97.
Yes.
97 or 98.
Yeah.
6? 96?
Yeah,
okay.
6, yeah.
Yeah,
so that's solid pick. He fits in with the groove. He has a nice floaty bass that really complements the sound, which is avant-garde.
Danny Carey's
Danny
drumming,
Carey's,
and it's what made me realize Tool was, because I had absolutely nothing to go off of Tool until their Fear Inoculum album, and so then I listened to the first 2 tracks of that album is Fear Inoculum and Pneuma, and that's those songs were when I realized these guys are real musicians. Going with their non-standard time signatures, and
I would have put it all the way back to 10,000 Days and Lateralis. I mean, I was hypnotized by Fear Inoculum.
Yes. But I had nothing to go off of. I had never heard those albums, so this was my introduction to them, and so that's when I realized, since I'm a drummer, Danny Carey's drumming really stood out to me. So you need to have a good bassist to complement, kind of like how you had John Paul Jones complementing John Bonham's drumming with his bass in Led Zeppelin. So I thought that was a really cool dynamic. You have to have that kind of dynamic, and I think he's a solid choice to put on your Mount Rushmore.
Oh, absolutely. I think I could have picked any one of those like great, hairband bassists like John Paul Jones or like Billy Sheehan or people like that. But I really just Justin Chancellor has really hypnotized me. Like, if you go back to Lateralis and you look at Schism, that shows you his absolute skill. And then when you come back, flash forward here to Tempest and Fear Inoculum, like that shows you his absolute power that he puts into his pick. And his fingertips, of course, because I think he finger picks more than he uses an actual bass pick. But like that shows you he's got skill, he's got power, and he has control. I think Tool really hinges on Chancellor more than they know.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. And I think he's a great choice.
I agree. All right, man. So my last one. All right, for drums, Connor, maybe you said the same thing. I don't remember, but we have John Bonham for drums.
Oh, yeah. There's a very few people that are in the upper echelon, and John Bonham's one of them.
Yeah, you guys did have me thinking about Keith Moon when I brought up Pete Townsend, and we were talking about The Who for a while there. I think Keith Moon and John Bonham just have such a similar story of being, pioneers of rock and roll drumming. You know, they lived that rock and roll lifestyle where they were drummers in a couple of the biggest bands in the world at the time, The Who and Led Zeppelin. And they lived that rock and roll lifestyle, and unfortunately, it killed them because they both I think they both passed out during a show. I don't know if you guys remember that story where Keith Moon passed out during a show, and so they had to call up someone from the audience to finish out their show, and it did. The guy did.
They cut that on video,
but I want to give it. Yeah, they did. I watched that concert. It was awesome. Imagine being able to top everybody's story at the party from then on. Oh, yeah, you went skiing this summer? Well, I played for The Who.
That is very cool.
So there's the door. I think I would really put maybe half of one face for Keith Moon, half for the other for John Bonham.
Yeah, I mean, they both are wild cards in their groups with Keith Moon I would say more on the showmanship, and John Bonham more on the technical skill, because Keith Moon gets his reputation for smashing his drum set in a very similar manner to the way that Pete was smashing his guitar, and there are some fantastic drum beats, and that actually do show off his technical skill. I would say Pinball Wizard is one of them. But if you want to get technical skill, then I'm going to have to go with John Bonham every time. I talked to some of my drummer friends, and they think he's the king of drum fills, but not actual beats, and I would just have to disagree, because he was also a king of non-standard time signatures with his drumming. And there was this great video I saw that was breaking down his technical skill, and that would be him being in sync with the guitarist, whereas you have the drummer and the bass, which are holding the backbone of the song itself, and then the guitarists and the singer get the melody. But he would get with the guitarist, and if you see like Immigrant Song,
oh yeah,
both him and Jimmy Page and John Bonham are doing that, and that is really, and that's kind of what gives the anxiety to that song. That's what kind of, not only just a kind of a march to it, but also an anxiety with it, and that's where John Bonham is just so dang skillful. And yes, he's one of the greater drum filler drummers, for excuse my casual terms, but that's what makes him so great.
Yeah, absolutely. And his drum solo, that song Moby Dick, that's John Bonham's song. That song belongs to him alone there, because that's the reason his solo is the reason that song is so famous. And if Connor, you know more about drumming than I do, but isn't he kind of the guy that pioneered the double bass pedal?
I don't think so, no. I believe he used just one pedal, but he moved it so fast that people thought it was double pedal. That being said, he could have used double pedals, but I don't know that off the top of my head.
Yeah, I didn't either, but That's what I thought. I thought he was known for that, but yeah, maybe it was just his foot was really, really stinking fast. But yeah, I can see why Rolling Stone ranked him the greatest drummer of all time, because think of how many people were inspired by John Bonham.
Yeah, it's almost all of them.
How many drummers today?
Almost all of them.
Probably. Yeah, probably almost all of them, like you said.
Yeah, I like.
I know, like for me, it's Travis Barker. Like
yeah.
I think of him as one of the greatest living drummers of all time right now. And he was probably inspired by John Bonham, as most drummers out there were.
Oh yeah.
So I would divide my last face in half: John Bonham, Keith Moon for my legendary drummers on my rock and roll Mount Rushmore.
Absolutely.
Nice.
And actually, you kind of did what I did with my last choices. So what I wanted to start off with was I wanted to go kind of in, I guess you could say this is kind of in chronological order. My first one is going to be Mozart.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Douche.
All right.
Beethoven composed his early works in the shadow of Mozart, and Joseph Haydn wrote, "Posterity will not see such a talent again in 100 years." He was one of the first rock stars, is what I'm going to say, but he's not. So if we're going on who pushed music forward in general, and we did not go on our definitions of why people are on the Mount Rushmore. It could be Mount Rushmore of your current favorites. It could be a Mount Rushmore of who pushed their genre the farthest, or who pushed their instrument the farthest. But I just wanted to say who pushed music the farthest, and Mozart was the first one to do that. And not the very first one to do that, because music goes back tens of thousands of years. But if we're going to be talking about in recorded history, Mozart was the very first one to do that. In fact, he was so dang rich. He had multiple houses where he would tour all the time before it was cool. And I know people say he died broke and penniless. He did not die penniless. He was not broke. There were experts who would say he died with today's equivalent of credit card debt.
Oh, good.
He was not
nothing.
actually. He was not.
I have credit card debt.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I got to pay my credit card every month. Yeah. So I'm going to start off there. I can't get in too much into the technicals of his styles, because that's not my thing. I do enjoy listening to classical, but I couldn't break it down. I couldn't teach people about it. So I'm going to move on to my second pick, who's going to be on there, and that's going to be Frank Sinatra.
Okay.
All right.
What's,
I like the
what is
old
it?
school
Yeah.
version, like route that you're taking here, Connor. I respect it.
What is it about Old Blue Eyes?
Bing Crosby was the first one to utilize the microphone. Frank Sinatra perfected it.
Yes.
So with his style, the crooners, they would like to lean into their microphone if they're getting into a bit more of a personal song.
Oh, I'm ready for you, ASMR.
Frank Sinatra was the very first person to ever come out with a concept album. It was called In the Wee Hours of the Morning. It's a great album. You guys should listen to it. People say Elvis Presley was the first big rock and roll artist, and it was tough that he didn't have any foundation to go on. Actually, Frank Sinatra was. Girls were literally crawling through the air ducts to get to him, and they had to flush him out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, dude, I'm not joking. I would say he was the first massive rock star that could be and the reason he was able to get to his popular status was he started his career on the radio, and then the television came, and that just rocketed him and other crooners like Bing Crosby to the stratosphere in their fame. And since Frank Sinatra was a little bit younger, it started earlier, and so he was he was the very first big rock and roller, and that's he literally had absolutely nothing to go on. At least Elvis had Frank.
Yeah, Sinatra is definitely the definition of cool. He had that gangster vibe that everybody found really mysterious, and he really was just cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons I wanted to put him on here is because he pushed music forward, and the way that he sings about love, he sings about broken love, and people weren't doing that at that time. So of course he was in with the mafia, so he had his hand in the mafia. So if I don't put him on that list, they're gonna get me.
Yes.
The next person and this next person, people are gonna roll their eyes and be like, "Of course, this is such an obvious choice." But I mean, it's it's an obvious choice because of what he did for early rock and roll, and that's Buddy Holly.
Oh, nice.
Obvious for a reason.
Yeah,
obvious for a reason.
He defined I guess the way that people set up their bands when you have two guitars, bass, and drums. And he kind of defined the genre of like in the middle 50s of rockabilly and rock and roll. And his influence was so massive that artists including Elvis Presley, Bob Dylan, the Beatles, the Rolling Stone, and Eric Clapton all said that he influenced all of them. They all mention him if they're ever asked, and you can go on YouTube, find any interview with them asking who are your major influences. All of them said Buddy Holly at some point. All of them did. And I mean, I will actually link you guys if you're interested in those interviews. So I don't listen to too much Buddy Holly, but I respect the name. I respect his iconic status. I respect what he did for rock and roll. And the people actually sang, Don McLean sang that when he died in the plane crash, the music died. The day the music died. So that's he's up there for a reason.
Who doesn't know Every Day by Buddy Holly, though?
What's up?
Who doesn't know the song Every Day by Buddy Holly?
It is a fantastic song. So that's, he's my third choice. And then since Tyler did it, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to split these faces in half on Mount Rushmore. You already mentioned Bob Dylan, and I'm going to, and I mentioned Bob Dylan because nobody was writing the way he did. When he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Bruce Springsteen put it perfectly. The way Elvis freed your body, Bob Dylan freed your mind. And I thought that was when he said that, I thought that was so perfect because nobody was singing the way he was. Nobody was singing about racial injustice the way he was. I'm sure.
Well, I hope no one was singing the way he is.
Well, that would be let us be free and
racial injustice.
Yeah, it's definitely an odd choice when it comes to him musically, but there are plenty of songs where he actually sounds pretty nice.
Yeah.
But he was the first person really to take a shot at the upper classes, and he was always punching up. Now that he's worth like $100 million or something, $80 to $100 million, I'm sure he can't do that quite as much. But when
he can only punch downward now.
He can only punch down, which not good. But he was the first person to do it. I mean, nobody was doing that at that time because he was starting in the early 60s. So there are still plenty of people singing "I Want to Hold Your Hand" when he's at the time where he's singing "Hey Hey Woody Guthrie, I Wrote You a Song," and then he eventually evolves into his music writing, and that's why I wanted to put this next face up there along with him. This is the person to do it for a whole different group of people, and I wanted to choose Marvin Gaye.
Oh, yes. That's
okay, yeah,
musically,
I like it.
because his voice is gorgeous.
Yes.
And there's plenty of reason people can say, oh, he's just a lovey-dovey singer because of Let's Get It On, or when they're singing, "You Ain't No Mountain High Enough." But he also wrote the black man's "The Times They Are Changing" with what's going on. And
exactly.
I listened to that song for the very first time when I was just sitting on my couch. The lights were off, or I think they were dimmed, and I just had the TV off, everything off, and I just had my headphones on, and the album was playing, and I cried twice when I listened to it. It was so good, and that's what made it so great, is because when this was out, not everyone was singing about this. People were still singing about love at the time. But he was saying, not everyone can pay the bills. Not all wars are just, not all soldiers are heroes. And why should a black soldier come home from defending their country, quote unquote, defending their country, because the purpose of the American presence in Vietnam was not clear to the public. And he was singing, why should we come home from this unjust war to segregation? Why should we come to dogs chasing after us, the police pulling us over for going 16 in a 15-mile-an-hour zone? Why should this happen?
Yeah, in the way that Bob Dylan gave voice to the white side of the underclass, I think Marvin Gaye gave voice to the underclass of Black Americans.
And
I can see,
had to do it. Someone had to do it.
Absolutely. I definitely see why you call him the Bob Dylan of Black Americans.
And also, that song still resonates, and it is still timely today as it was written, umpteen amount of years ago. But I'm saying
50 years ago.
Yeah, the themes are just they're
unfortunately they're
today.
relevant today.
Unfortunate circumstances. They are very relevant.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that's, so these
first time I heard Inner City Blues, I think I listened to it like 12 or 13 times in a row.
Oh my god, yeah. It's that's just such a freaking good groove. And yeah, so those are our Mount Rushmores for music. And I wanted to get into a more personal question with this. Who in your life has been the biggest musical influence on you? And when I ask that, I guess like who originally introduced you to, I guess, who your favorite artists? For me, my dad and my mom were big influences.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So Court, I'll start with you. Who introduced you to all the bands that you like?
It's kind of like a myriad of different people. I'll try to keep it fairly streamlined and straight and not really confusing too much. Like being set down as a kid, while my mom did crafts and had craft shows out of her house when I was in Colorado. There was always like an oldies 95 station and then there's always Casey Kasem's top 40 countdown. And there was she just had me plop down with whether or not she was really introducing to it. She was, in a way, because that was the music she liked, the 50s and 60s. So I got to hear Four Tops and Aretha and the Beatles and Buddy Holly, like we talked about, and so on and so forth, Motown, and it could go on forever. So I got influenced there, but my brother, Ross, adopted brother, listened to metal, so Rat and Poison, and then he got into some kind of like he was into Anthrax and Pantera, and he also got into some gangster rap with Ice Cube and stuff like that. So I got that influence. My dad wasn't really there too much, but I understood that he liked classical music, like your Mozart or Tchaikovsky or whatever his name is.
Tchaikovsky, yeah, that's
Tchaikovsky. So he would be listening to that. We had a reel-to-reel player with tape. Sorry about that. Ooh, loud noise there. So I got a myriad of influences there. I think I just soaked up the influences when I got into high school with whoever. If there was a pretty lady that liked, say, the Counting Crows, and I didn't really know about this band, I would start listening to them. Or
you gotta do what you gotta do, man.
Yeah, to win their affection. I got introduced a lot of that just to friends, and introduced a lot of friends to music. And then I got into my friend Jesse's father was really into classic rock, so I got introduced to a lot of the southern rock, your Lynyrd Skynyrd, your Molly Hatchet, the Outlaws. And then he was really into Clapton, AC/DC, Thin Lizzy, and the list goes on and on. So I got really a vernacular for classic rock, which I was missing. And then I got some of my friends that were more like, when I went to Northwest, Missouri State University, I had friends that were into your outlaw country and your 90s country and modern country, which I still not really into the modern country. I can't get into the Florida-Georgia line, but I can dip back into the Waylon Jennings, your your Willie Nelsons, your Hank Sr., and stuff like that. So I got influenced by them for country. So I got a little bit of this and that through my many years. I had friends when I worked at a grocery store for like a decade or more. They introduced me everything from like Tech Nine to we were listening to Marilyn Manson and Mudvayne and Slipknot. We would go to those concerts. So and then I went to the Warped Tour with some friends for years and years. So I was really into your Blink-182s, your Sum 41s, your Yellow Cards. So really, I just picked up all these influences along the way, and then I shared them with all the other people. The things that really influenced me, I shared with my cousin, that I basically is like more of a brother to me, and I raised him, and I shared my influences of pop punk or alternate 90s alternative music. So yeah.
Wow, so
I would say like
it really did. That was a spider web of a
Yeah.
map of your
Yeah.
the
I thought
influences of your music.
I said I'd keep it streamlined, but I did not.
I mean, I think you did a pretty good job. And it is a rather vague question because there's so many different people that get us into so many different things. And it's not always going to be as simple as, my answer, which is my mom and my dad are my biggest influences, and then my fraternity introduced me to rap and hip hop. So, but like my dad is a huge fan of classic rock and like the grunting and the growling kind of rock and roll of so Bachman Turner Overdrive is a huge he's a huge fan of
And Bad Company and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. The very first band he ever considered his favorite was Steppenwolf.
Great.
And that's
great
also
band.
kind of one of those, I can't remember the singer's name. John Kay, I think it is.
John Kay, yeah.
Oh, cool. And yeah, he kind of has kind of like
He does.
heavy metal thunder kind of a growl to it as well. And so he likes those singers. But then he also gets me into some of those more blues and country influenced artists like the Allman Brothers Band, and
Great.
I mean they kind of got some surf guitar in there, so it's not necessarily.
He's got that huge collection of it in the basement.
Yeah. He's the person that got me into Bob Dylan, and then Rock Band reintroduced me to Bob Dylan, and so that was he had a book and he gave it to me and I read it. But then my mom is a music teacher, so that's the reason I listen to jazz and classical too, and once a year, I'll try to listen to. There'll be a period of time for several weeks at a time where I'm only listening to jazz and classical or adult contemporary, and that's where Bing Crosby comes in. That's where Old Blue Eyes, Frank Sinatra comes in. But that's also where Mozart and Beethoven come in, and I genuinely enjoy listening to those because it's very atmospheric to me and it reminds me of home. When I went to college, I quickly realized that more and more people listen to hip hop and rap, and that's the whitest people I've ever met in my life, like pocket protectors, kind of white, listen to rap and hip hop, and so that's when I started listening to more rap and hip hop. I came back from school and I worked for this restaurant in Omaha called Bravo, and our chef Tommy gave me a list of artists to listen to, and he said, you need to listen to this album right here. It's considered the greatest of all time, and I think it's the greatest of all time. And I was like, oh, what is it? And it's Ready to Die by Biggie Smalls. So I listened to it, which was my very and this is not my first exposure to rap and hip hop, but this is the very first time as an adult I was going to sit down and analyze the music, and I did, and holy crap, is that album amazing. It is so great. And
it's so great to hear you say that, Connor, because you were always so hesitant when it came to rap when we were younger.
Well, yeah, it's but I didn't really understand it, and because I was still kind of getting to know who I was myself, and it wasn't in like my family, it wasn't really in our immediate friend groups in our neighborhood. Like it was more pop, like bubblegum pop for our friends growing up, but now everyone listens to everything. But when
you call it Kayla and Taylor and Ashley listen to bubblegum pop?
Not anymore, obviously. I mean, we were kids is what I was saying. But now, as an adult, when I listen to it, I've had more experiences and I can relate a little bit more, but not entirely. Now I can appreciate rap for the story. Kendrick is another person I listen to now. When I listen to Section 80 and To Pimp a Butterfly, man, dude, like I was listening to Pimp a Butterfly. I was in bed. It was in college, and I was trying to get to sleep, but I couldn't. I was just tossing and turning, and I said, you know what? I'm going to listen to some music. And like an idiot, I chose an album I've never heard before, which was going to cause me to analyze it and think and really listen, rather than I should have just put on something with no lyrics and just atmospheric and gone to sleep. But I turned on To Pimp a Butterfly, and wow, just so gorgeous. The whole composition, everything, it was all beautiful music. And people don't think of rap and hip-hop as being beautiful, But I think as a piece of artwork, I think it is beautiful, even if it's not necessarily touching on great subjects, even if it's not touching on, you know, even if it's not like a gorgeous voice like Aretha or anything like that. But I think the way that Kendrick, like for example, there's a song called "Sing About Me." I think with the style and with the guitar in the background, I think it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, I agree. That's a landmark album. That's very it's weighty. Mm-hmm. It's very heavy album.
Yes, yeah, and but Section 80 and To Pimp a Butterfly are the only like full albums I've ever listened to of Kendrick. I need to listen to more. I even listened to Lil Baby the other day in the gym.
Oh no!
And there was a song he wrote during the pandemic, and I thought it was actually pretty good. I need to listen to more of him. I've only listened to a couple songs. Yeah, sure.
Connor,
People
I
could say,
think
"Oh no,"
you and
but,
I.
Yeah. But
Connor, I think you and I have very very similar backgrounds in music, except I always considered. What? That's the first time I'm hearing that we're twins, actually. But yeah, I think you and I have really similar backgrounds when it comes to music because we had the same exact upbringing. Mom and Dad were the ones who introduced me to music. Dad with classic rock, and then Mom with, you know, everything that you were mentioning, like Sinatra, classical music, but also big band music. I find myself still listening to big band music when I want to either feel classy or when I just want something on in the background. Dad raising us on his music, especially the Beatles, really making sure that we knew classic rock. I still think back to the times when something came on in the radio in the car and he'd be like, "Hey, quick, Tyler, Connor, who is this right now?" And then we wouldn't get it. He'd be like, "I'm ashamed of you guys." So I think about that. I think about that a lot. And I'm like, you know what? From where I used to be to where I am, Dad would be utterly proud of me. But yeah, if it weren't for Dad, and if it weren't for Mom being a music teacher, I don't think I'd be, nearly as well versed in music, because I find myself constantly going back to the same like 10 or 12 songs that I really like and just listening to them over and over again, just like I'm hitting the button on a dopamine rush. But I think it was Dad quizzing me and Mom training me and to be a musician. That really helped me branch out to appreciate music, not only as someone who likes to listen to music, but as a critic of it. Does that make sense? To study it, to understand it.
Structural foundation. You know, someone has to plant the seed of interest.
Amen. And that's exactly what Mom and Dad did. Like Mom, especially being the music teacher who helped me get into playing instruments. Like I am trained now to listen to instruments and find out what I like, what I don't like, to know who I respect. And I would always ask Dad, who's your favorite artist? And it used to frustrate me when he said, I don't really have one. Because I was little and all of my friends had favorite artists. I had favorite artists, I had favorite bands, but I totally understand why Dad says, I don't know, I don't have a favorite musician, because it's always constantly changing. It was Pearl Jam for how many years, and then it changed. 21 Pilots, and then, I don't know, throw in many other artists in there now too, Led Zeppelin, Nirvana. Like I have all of these artists that I respect at different levels and for different reasons. Mom trained me to go to music when I'm feeling, sad or mad, channel that. I can listen to different songs if I'm feeling a certain way. If I want to go jogging, I can throw in songs that are longer. I can throw in Stairway to Heaven when I just want to sit and chill or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's due to this background in music, this foundation that Mom and Dad gave us, that I think made me into the musical critic that I am today. And granted, I don't know everything.
Oh no!
Just list off a bunch of artists off the top of my head. I really got to think about it.
But I did want to throw in Tyler and I are actual musicians, and we both were in choir when we were younger. Tyler stayed in choir. I left and then came back. I was in concert band, so when I grew up, I've always known how to play the drums. I never took lessons. I just always knew how to play it. And then when
you took lessons, you remember with Kim Kep's brother up the street?
Oh yeah, I think I took maybe 4. individual lessons, it was not long. I was way too young. My mom said that they sent me in way too young because I wasn't understanding anything. But then when they actually gave me a drum set, I knew how to play it. And then I also played trombone and euphonium. A little bit of the tuba, but not actually. But like trombone and euphonium in concert band and jazz band. And then Tyler, he's a
I took the guitar route.
Bassist, and he played in the praise band at our school.
Yeah, I started when I was in 5th grade with guitar and then bass in 8th grade. I'm still not any good because I just never practice, especially now these days as a high school teacher. I just do not have the time to do that, but I'm really glad to have the foundation of instrument playing.
Yes. And then Court didn't play instruments.
No.
And Court did it.
I can't play a lick of anything, but I just have some knowledge, I guess.
Yeah, and you've got experience. I was going to say age, but no, you've got experience. And
and plenty of age.
Yes.
So that wraps up that. There is, a question I actually wanted to ask both of you guys is like, we're always going to be growing in our musical tastes, as Tyler was saying earlier. We are not musical experts. There's plenty more we need to listen to, plenty more we need to learn. And I just wanted to ask, are there other groups that we meant to get into, but we just haven't yet?
Absolutely. There's always artists out there that I still need to get into. There's always musical genres that I still need to dip my toes into. And for me, just to kind of start this off, I would say probably pop and punk. There's or what's considered emo rock. There's a lot out there, that I haven't listened to just because it's not really my cup of tea. But when I'm thinking about it, I just don't think I gave it the chance and really stepped with it. There's the Ramones. Who else? Bad Religion. That I've listened to, just never really appreciated. Connor and I had this whole conversation about how overrated the Ramones are. I gave who is it? The Sex Pistols a quick listen to, and I'm like, wow, how underwhelming. But maybe, I listened to one album, so maybe I need to listen to it more. But there's,
Well,
pop,
you listen to their best album,
punk.
so if that's not going to be enough for you, then they're not for you.
No,
maybe I need to listen to more of their deeper tracks to really appreciate their better album. But like pop punk or just punk rock in general, I think I need to give, has really evolved over time. Green Day.
I'm your man.
My Chemical Romance. Yeah. Court, I'll probably be texting you afterwards. But I had a lot of college friends that I had one college friend in particular who really liked All Time Low. And I listened to one song and I'm like, oh man, this ain't good. And even Blink 182, I hardly know anything by Blink 182.
Don't hurt me with this.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna throw Blink 182 into the trash bin just yet. But yeah, there's a lot in there that I do like though. Paramore, Fall Out Boy.
Yes.
And I really do love Green Day. I love Green Day. So I'm not saying that I don't appreciate punk. I'm saying I think I do need to give it more of a chance and just listen to more of it to see if I can broaden my horizon, or if I want to broaden my horizon in that direction. But I think for me, it's punk rock.
Okay.
There's plenty of that you're going to be listening to, especially if you're going to be talking with Court on this podcast. He's
and My Chemical Romance. I love My Chemical Romance.
They're great. Lead singer Gerard Way I met him once. He's a very nice guy. We talked comic books. He didn't have to be down to earth the way he was, but he was. I mean, the guy.
Wait, how did what? You're just gonna throw that out there? Oh, I ran into Gerard Way of My Chemical Romance. Just bumped into him at the supermarket.
He was just chilling, ready to talk to fans, and I'd like to say this is probably the Black Parade era. They were ready to close.
That's their best era.
Yeah, I guess they're ready to. They had one more album in them, but they have a resurgence. I guess they're coming back. But this was probably in the midst of him doing his graphic novel comic book called Umbrella Academy that was on Netflix. So
oh my god, that was him?
Yeah, he has quite a imagination.
Oh wow.
So yeah, he came up with the Umbrella Academy and a couple other things. Worked on a DC Comics comic called Doom Patrol, which they also made a DC Universe show about Doom Patrol. But yeah, he was a really down-to-earth guy, and that era is really great. They had a conceptual look to them, just like what the White Stripes did with their color scheme. My Chemical Romance certainly had a shtick, definitely during the Black Pride era. But yeah, I could definitely be your gateway to introducing you to emo, pop punk. I don't know if you want to go into screamo, but there's certainly that too.
I pretended to be into screamo in high school to fit in with these emo crowd because I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere else. I'm like, you know what? If I listen to enough enough of this garbage, I think I could fit in at least for conversation.
That's exactly my mindset. Going from 8th grade into 9th grade, I would listen to like Scary Kids scaring kids, or I would listen to a little bit of August Burns Red, and I actually liked a little bit of August Burns Red.
I do appreciate August Burns Red. I will never get We Butter the Bread with Butter out of my head though.
No, well, I won't. I will never get into them. I completely pretended to. I thought it was garbage from through and through, and I was just like you. If I listen to it enough, I'll like it, but it was, not good.
Just like any genres, there's a lot of subgenres within the punk. So we could get into a lot of things like two-tone. We could get into ska, which is
now that you mentioned that Gerard Way did the Umbrella Academy, that makes so much sense. Because when you just look right at Gerard Way, you're like, there's no way that guy's a musician. A famous singer? Him? Nah. He looks more of the graphic novel writing type.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Just go look at his Go look at some pictures. He's like wearing sweaters. He's got long hair.
Sure. He looked like he's been hiding in his mom's basement for a while.
Gosh.
Yeah. I didn't want to say basement dweller court, but I'm glad you did.
Yeah, but really nice guy. That's good. We can.
Plenty of groups and individual artists to get into. Personally, I'd like to get more into Stone Temple Pilots.
Okay.
I'd really like to. I think I would really like to get more into some punk, but maybe not. Maybe not as much, because there's just some punk that I think just gets a little bit overhyped. Like when I listen to the Ramones, I listened to the Ramones album, and I could not tell the difference between one song or another because they all sound the exact same. I mean, Nickelback gets a bad rep. The Ramones, they sound the exact.
The Ramones are the ones who deserve that rep.
I think they do. I think they are horribly overrated. So like some punk, I just don't think I need to. Really.
Should we just have an entire segment called "Fuck the Ramones"?
No, not at all. No,
I have respect.
We will get stabbed. I got
respect
what they did
for him.
punk, but they're not my favorite. Maybe Depeche Mode or Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
How do you say it? Depeche?
Depeche Mode, yeah.
Depeche Mode. But why would they? Okay. Hence, I really need to get into them. Yeah.
They're great, man.
There's this song. What's it called? Enjoy the Silence or whatever. That I listened to because the CEO of the bank introduced me to it, and I was like, oh, that's a really great song. And so I was like, time to get more into them, and then I never did.
Okay. Yeah, they're a great band. I'm a new wave fan of new wave, so if there's anyone who wants to get a new wave, I'm your man as well. I could introduce you.
It reminds me that the Ramones are on the Rolling Stone 100 greatest artists of all time list, which really grinds my gears. How many others were passed up who were deserving of that title?
It was simply for the pure simplicity and
they're also kind of fighting the man too.
Gateway. It's like I don't think we would get people like Green Day or you Blink-182s without going through the Ramones.
Damn it, that's a good point.
I think kind of they're like the 4 chords creating
four chords and just melodies.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the Kinks really kind of stylized and spearheaded the riff rock kind of movement, and then it kind of evolved into what the Ramones did, and then what the Sex Pistols did, and then to later on to some of the bigger punk artists today.
If you want a band around that era that gets respect, maybe a little bit overrated, but still gets the due respect and should get the due respect just for their diversity, their political stance, it would be the Clash. You should get into the Clash.
London Calling.
I know of the Clash. I've heard of them.
Listen to London Calling. That's kind of their that's their flagship album.
Yeah, and Combat Rock is one of their albums that had Rock the Casbah. And they just I don't know, they're just great musicians.
Yeah.
And great punk rock forefathers. So.
All right. So I think we can end it there. We've been doing this for a little while, but this is definitely an introductory podcast. You can tell it's very introductory by these questions alone. But the coming episodes are not going to be this structured, where we go, question and answer, but it's going to be a little bit more of a conversational tone. But I'm glad to do these kinds of podcasts where you get to know us, and it makes them a little bit more personal. And if you guys have any, favorite songs, favorite artists that we mentioned or didn't get mentioned or anything like that, let us know in the comments below. And let us know what you want to hear from us. As for this whole podcast, we want to take you on a journey, and we'd love for you to come with us. So anywhere you can find Rocket Talk, you can find this podcast. Share us, and if you like us, leave a comment. If you like us, subscribe to us. But also, please, if you like this podcast, tell your friends. The word of mouth is the superior way of hearing about different music and different podcasts.
If there's one name to take away, it's Tyler Raby. Just remember that.
If you like Court, let him know you love him. If you like Tyler, let him know you love him.
Right.
If you like me, please stop roasting me so hard in the comments. They don't roast me. We don't get comments. Yeah. So this podcast is sponsored by Anchor.
I'm going to create 20 accounts just to roast you in the comments, Connor.
I hope they do that. You can't interrupt sponsors, Tyler. This podcast is sponsored by
the money.
Anchor, the easiest way to make a podcast. Visit anchor.fm to start your own podcast. This podcast is also sponsored by BuyLightFixtures.com. Visit BuyLightFixtures.com for a trusted source of quality lighting products for your business or home. That's it.